Architectural Builder's Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
7800 series. It's the 1100 or the 11.
Yeah. The 1100?
7811.
7811. Okay. I understand it better when we use the part numbers. I got it.
Okay. And the hardware is 11 years old. It's worked beautifully till just recently. The door is starting to rub on the top of the opening. As you go to open it, push it open, it's touching the wall. That's where the opposite side of the pivot, which is kind of strange. I don't know, do those pivots bend over years or?
No, not really.
Not really.
Maybe the frame opening is no longer a rectangle.
Yeah, it's been plastered, Venetian plaster, so there's no sign of any cracking or settlement. It's got a wood ceiling that the pivot, the head of is mortared into, and that board is still in the same place. You can see it by the way it's plastered around. So it's a mystery, and there's no adjustment on those. Are there?
No,
Left
there's
to
no
right?
vertical adjustment on a 7800 series horizontal spring pivot.
No, horizontal.
Yeah. So something's happened. Either a pivot point has moved somewhere somehow, or the jamb is no longer true plumb level and square, or the hardware something has occurred to the hardware where it's no longer allowing the door to operate in such a way where the door is not making contact with the header. Something obviously happened.
Yeah.
Is there a solution?
Well, the solution is determining what the cause is. And if you've eliminated all environmental possibilities, then you'd probably conclude it's the hardware and replace that.
The hardware's about, from what we understand, they're still making it. They still have it available, some guys. They quit making the hardware, right?
Yeah. Well, we still have some. The design may have changed slightly to where you may have to alter the prep in the door. But if you did, it wouldn't be very major. Is there, how much is it rubbing? Is it insignificant to like a belt sander would be an approach, which I don't recommend?
I don't think so.
Because maybe the door is like sheet, right? Or
I think we'd look into new hardware before we start doing cutting the doors down.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you taken the cover plates off?
I took the bottom cover plate off. There's not one at the top, of course. Or is there?
I don't think there is.
You see anything interesting there?
There is one at the top, right?
No, there wouldn't be any cover plates at the top.
Huh?
No, there's not.
Nothing at the top. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. What I said was there are no cover plates at the top.
You're asking me.
I'm not asking you anything. What I'm saying is there are, on a 7800 series, there are no cover plates at the top of the door.
Right. Gotcha. Got it. Yeah, there's just the one on the bottom.
Yeah, so Scott did take off the cover plate at the base of the door.
Yeah.
So have you removed those, and have you discovered anything interesting when you move the door?
I don't know enough about the hardware. Nothing really jumps out at me.
Well, something's got to be lifting the door.
It seems like it's all where it should be.
Well, yeah, I don't know
What
what
would
to say.
be
I mean,
what would be something that would be different?
I don't know. In decades, no one has ever
Yeah.
called and said to me what you said about the door hitting
Yeah.
at the header when it's been
Oh.
associated as a hardware problem.
Well,
So something is occurring that's forcing the door to lift. I would move that door through its opening and closing cycle until I got to the point where it clearly lifted, and then I would then try to discover what's happening in the hardware that causes it to physically raise by likely at least 1/8 of an inch. That should be detected, would be my guess.
how do you do the lifting?
Nothing should be lifting, but if the opening hasn't changed to where the opening is no longer a rectangle, and the door hasn't changed, the only thing that it could be would be the hardware. So if it's hitting the jamb, you should be able to detect that when you cycle the door.
Yeah, so, and this is new territory for me, obviously, but so if you're looking at it and like Scott was saying, the plaster hasn't cracked, which usually it's Venetian plaster is pretty sensitive, so there's no cracking. The wood is all. Could it be that somebody going through the pivot door pushed it too aggressively? Or is that grass mat straws? I mean, just the idea of getting it off.
Yeah, no, you're right. We're grass mat straws. Like I said, I don't know what could have caused, what could have been done to that bottom pivot to have the door hit the header after a decade plus. But something's occurred. The easiest thing to explain it is that your pivot point has changed.
Okay. So then that means, would you then suggest we take it down and reinstall a new 7811?
Only if you absolutely determine that the hardware is the cause of it. Has this door been removed from the opening recently?
No, not in 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's acted beautifully until just the last. We noticed it maybe a month or so ago, but it's a kid-free house, really pretty taken care. I mean, it's just a weird fluky thing.
Yeah.
And also, the reason we called you is because your video was very good on the installation and the just.
Any chance you can send me a video of this condition so I can see what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little techno challenged, but I can give it a go. And if you're willing, I'm more than happy to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So where would I stay?
Yeah. My email is sales, SALES. At. Now it's A as in architectural, B as in builders, supply, SUPPLY. .net.
.net. So I'm going to read back to you. So it's sales at absupply.net.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And it is, and I am speaking to Richard, right?
That's me.
Hey, again, hopefully you guys have the gentleman that answered the phone was incredibly helpful. You have been, and so we'll take a little video and see what we can find out.
Awesome. I look forward to reviewing it.
Yeah, and if we end up with needing hardware, is that something we could purchase this through you, or do we go back to Bommer, or do you have it?
Yes, to the first and the third.
Okay. All right. Hey, yeah. I thank you very much. And Scott, do you have any questions? Okay, we'll take a video and we'll send it to you, Richard.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program. So the client did send us an email with a video of the condition, so let's take a look and see what the client has sent us. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So it's not the header that the door is hitting, it's the jamb, and that does certainly make a lot more sense. So clearly what's happened is a couple of things that I saw in the video. Well, one thing I saw and one thing I heard. I certainly heard knocking as the door was opening, being pushed open, and that's not typical. So something is broken on the inside, most likely. And what's happening is when the door is being pushed open, it's being pushed well past 90 degree, and it's making contact with the outside corner of the jamb. And if you watch the door as the door approaches, you can see that there's some evidence that it had made contact there previously. Enough, apparently, from what it seems to me, to chip the paint. So probably the door was hyperextended unintentionally. The door's worked for decades. It's not 10 years old, it's likely several decades old. And, you know, the door is hyperextended probably somehow. Fatigued, broke, compromised something on the inside. And now when you continue to hyperextend the door, it hits the wall. So I don't think that I would replace the hardware, because if I hyperextend it, it's going to hit the wall, unless for some reason someone's typically going through the opening and then maybe their approach needs to be at this immediate hard angle, so they're coming through the door but pushing it open so they can continue in that path. If that's the case, you might want to consider a doorstop. Might just solve the problem near the jamb, something mounted to the floor to prevent the door from going any further. Obviously replacing the hardware outright, but the question is what is the degree of opening on the Bommer 7800 series? I don't know. It's 90 degree, but is it 96 degree? I don't know. It might be. In fact, it's likely what it is a hard stop at 90 degree. To go beyond that, you're going to possibly damage the hardware, which I expect is what's happened, because it's going past 90. Because in a hold open, it holds open at about 85 degrees, so you have to push it past the hold open point to get it to settle at the hold open point. But let me grab what 7800 series I still have, and let's see if we can determine what a reasonable hold open point would be, or pardon me, a reasonable maximum degree of opening. Let's do that now. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos, in the sense that, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So I can't say I've ever put a 7800 in a vise, but I'm going to put it in the vise, and we'll try to figure out how far open it will go. This is a 7801, and I selected it. Well, first of all, I wanted to use an 01 because it's probably what the client has. It's a 7801 versus a 7811 or a 7813 HD. It's also, luckily, the first thing I spotted when I walked to the shelf. So a little bit easier there, I suppose. Now the base plate is not perfectly rectangular, so I've got something to place around the hardware so as to not mar it very much. Or at all, I should say, not very much. We won't mar it at all. Okay. go. Just enough to hold it in there without it moving on us. Okay, so it's clearly at 0 degree right now. Yeah, because it's a lighter spring, it's easier to move. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's easy to spot why this works the way it does, and you know, it's holding open. You know, my educated guess is it's holding open at about 93 degree. So there's clearly something compromised on the client's hardware. It's just simply what I figure is happening here. So here it is in the closed position. I can take that, rotate it open, square the vise off to your perspective. You know, without me discovering the actual degree of angle, you know, we can tell that it's, you know, it appears to be about what the bevel is on a door. So that's about 3 degree. So this is going to about 93 degree, but it's not going to that greater degree that we could see in the client's hardware. And you know, there's no clicking that occurs when this operates. So that sound alone tells me that there's likely something wrong with the client's hardware. Okay, why? So how are we determining that? We're determining there's something wrong with the client's hardware because it's making it sound. That's never normal. And it didn't hit the jam historically, but now it does. And it's opening much further than our piece of equipment here, which may not be accurate to compare it to something that's decades old. But it's the same piece of hardware, with the exception of probably some minor nips and tweaks and maybe a slight redesign. But there's something wrong with it because Bommer double-acting spring hinges, they're meant to be installed in cased opening frames. So cased opening frames are going to be typical wall thickness, 4 9/16 in a home, whatever it is. And the thicker the wall, in fact, the worse the application could get, and you may see thicker walls in mid 20th century construction or construction from the 1930s or 40s than would be used today, where it's 2.5-inch metal studs and 1/2-inch drywall, things of that nature. So the cased opening is, let's just say it's 5-inch. Okay. As that door rotates out, by design inherently, it should never go much past 90 degree. And if it does, it'll go only so slightly, because if the design permitted the door to go further, it would hit the jam, just like the client's experiencing. So because that would be an undesirable design feature of the 7800 series pivots, they wouldn't have designed it that way. And it would be my guess that that it's been compromised and just simply needs to be replaced, is the bottom line. Hardware does fatigue and fail. It does need to be replaced. And it's really great that a piece of equipment like that has lasted clearly so many decades, and it's far more than 10 years old. You can tell, well, I can tell by just looking at the design of it, I suppose. So What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to send an email to the engineer from Bomber and ask for a validation of the conclusion that the hardware's been somehow compromised because it had been hyperextended. And I will, the next part of this video will be hopefully his response. Every time that I email him, his name is Stuart Jackson, and his S. Jackson is written on countless Bomber technical drawings, and most certainly his name appears in patents as well. So I'm going to send Mr. Jackson an email and ask that he validate that conclusion, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Regarding the links to ads that you might see in this video, we do apologize for any interruption to a smooth viewing experience, and hopefully the ads that are being presented to you are related to the base product. And if there is something, feel free to click on those and perhaps consider taking a look at what that other advertiser is promoting. Let's get back to the video. Okay, not too much longer after sending that email, I did receive a response from the former engineer at Bomber, and Stuart Jackson says you can push the door all the way around 360 degrees, or in this case, until the door makes contact with the jamb. That line confuses me because based on, if you, I suppose if you forcefully made it go 360 degrees, I suppose you could. But the important second line is you can hear the pivot snap into hold open before it makes contact with the jamb, but if you continue to keep pushing, you can defeat the stop and hit the jamb. So it's meant, as our example on the vise showed, it's meant to come to a hold open, but if you keep going, you can defeat the stop, which to me would say, to me it means you're damaging or breaking the material that prevents it from stopping. So you can defeat the stop, sure you can, and by the way, the stop is going to be compromised after that. So that's probably what the case is. So reading that line, either the client never went past the hold open point, because the client didn't open the door to its maximum and then release it. We don't know if maybe the hold open is broken. Maybe he pushes it beyond the hold open point and it does hold open. In that case, the stop is probably compromised. Or it was hyperextended. If you let the door go, it will then fully close when it ought to be holding open. But that cracking sound, that's indicative of something that's very old and is likely they weren't coming out of the factory making that loud clicking, cracking sound is the bottom line. So that's indicative of something happening that probably was historically not the case. So that's what we know. The bottom line is we get this type of question very often, and it's most often from people who have literally had the hardware, or the hardware's been installed for several decades, and it just boils down to, like Ed said earlier, replacement. If the functionality is not working, agreeable for what your requirements are, no longer, it's time for a replacement. Even Bomber material fatigues or fails or succumbs to damage, unintentional damage. If there's any question about the Bomber 7800 horizontal spring pivots or any Bomber item, in fact, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.